In the city of Lagos, there lived a man named Chief Oba. His mansions glittered across the city. His companies stretched into every corner of business, and his fleet of cars lined the streets like a moving kingdom. To the outside world, the Oba family was the very picture of success. People spoke of them with admiration. Parents prayed that their daughters might marry into such wealth, for it was said that once you became part of that household, you would never know poverty again. But behind the golden gates of the Oba estate, behind the walls that shone with luxury, there was a secret so dark that even the wind carried whispers of fear. Though many brides entered that house with joy, none had ever lived long enough to tell their story. Chief Oba had 3 sons. The youngest, Edmund Oba, was a man who only knew how to spend money. He spent his nights in clubs and hotels. In fact, he knew every hotel and club in the city. Edgar Oba, the middle son, was a man without a heart. He was so wicked that people feared him wherever he went. The eldest son, Victor, you can as well call him a devil reincarnation. Chief Oba's wife, Muwanyima, was a businesswoman just like her husband. She was very rich, and together they were known all over the city. Many people admired the family, and many parents prayed for their daughters to marry into such wealth. But here is the strangest thing. Every bride who had married into the Oba family had died within 2 weeks of her wedding. Edmund Oba, the youngest son, had married several times, but each time, his wife died mysteriously after 2 weeks. This was how the Oba family prospered. The more wives they buried, the richer they became. Long ago, Chief Oba and his wife had entered into a covenant with a secret cult. To keep their wealth, they had to offer new bride's blood as a sacrifice. Muwanyima initiated all 3 of her children into the coven, and together they lived by one tradition. Every new wife must die within 2 weeks, her blood feeding the family's fortune. In that same city lived a beautiful girl named Zina. Zena's parents died when she was 8, and she was raised by her mother's sister. Zina had lived her life in poverty and prayed that one day she would be able to change her fate. She dreamed of being one of the wealthiest women but didn't know how to achieve it. As a plantain seller, she wondered how she would ever make enough money to drive cars and live a luxurious lifestyle. She had heard rumors about Chief Oba and his sons, but she wished that God would bless her with one of them as a husband. One morning, Zina went to her stall and unexpectedly ran into Victor, Chief Oba's eldest son. When she first saw him, she didn't know who he was, but when she saw the license plate on his car that clearly read, Victor Oba, she seized her chance. She dramatically fell. Catching his attention, he immediately rushed her to the hospital, where the doctors told him she had been stressing herself out and needed rest. They asked Victor to take care of her. Zina was overjoyed that she had finally crossed paths with the son of the richest man in the city. She apologized to Victor, explaining she didn't mean for any of it to happen. Victor simply smiled and replied, "It's okay. We don't decide when we fall ill. It's just nature, but you do have to take proper care of yourself." He handed her 200,000 naira and a company card, telling her to call him if she needed anything in the future. He left after saying that. Zina returned home that day, dancing with joy. She danced and danced, smiling all day. Her aunt could not take her eyes off of Zina, as this was the first time she had ever seen her so happy. She simply asked, "My dear, have you won some kind of jackpot, or did the President of London give you some kind of invitation?" Zena's smile grew even wider. She took her aunt's arms, shaking them with joy, and exclaimed, "Auntie, this is more than an invitation from the President. You won't believe it. I crossed paths with Victor, the first son of Chief Oba, the richest man in this city. Auntie, I acted a little silly just to get his attention, but what matters is that I have it. He took care of me at the hospital and even gave me 200,000 naira and his number. He insisted I should take care of myself and call him if I need anything. Don't you know what this means? My dream of being one of the wealthiest women in the city is almost here. I can call him anytime I want, and I will make him fall in love with me. I'm happy that your wishes are coming true," her aunt replied. "But my dear, you have to be really careful. Rich men value decent girls. You shouldn't act indecent just to get a man's attention. You are still my lovely girl. You want to get yourself out of poverty, but do not forget the values I raised you with." That same day, Zina clutched the company card in her hand, the plastic feeling strangely heavy.
She stared at the name, Victor Oba, and the number printed below it for a long time before she finally gathered the courage to dial.
The phone rang twice before a smooth, deep voice answered. "Hello?" Zena's voice was shaky, full of respect. "Hello, is this Mr. Victor?" "It is, and you're Zina, right?" His voice was calm, almost bored. "Yes, it is. I'm sorry to bother you. I wanted to thank you again for the money and for your help." There was a short pause on the other end, long enough to make Zena's palms sweat. "No need to thank me," Victor replied. "It's nothing. I've never been treated with such kindness," she continued, her voice softer now, more genuine. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you," Victor chuckled. It wasn't a warm sound, but it didn't sound cruel either. "You don't have to repay me," he stated. "Just let me take you out for lunch tomorrow." Zina hesitated. Her aunt's words about being careful echoed in her mind. But the thought of a life of luxury was too powerful to resist. The plantain stall, the poverty, the endless struggle, she couldn't go back to that. That would be nice," she agreed, her voice a little shaky but firm. "Good," he concluded, his voice a low purr. "My driver will pick you up at noon." He hung up without another word. Zina stared at the phone, a wide smile spreading across her face. It was happening. Her plan had worked. She was going to get out of poverty. Meanwhile, in the grand dining room of the Oba mansion, Edgar Oba had just returned home with his new bride, a beautiful young woman named Cassandra. The family sat around a long table, the room filled with the scent of a lavish meal. Chief Oba and his wife looked proud and happy in their expensive clothes. They laughed and looked at each other with strange, knowing smiles. But Cassandra didn't notice anything unusual. She was too lost in the happiness of her wedding to see the coldness in their eyes. Then, Chief Oba and his children began to speak in a strange language. The words were not familiar to Cassandra, and their voices were low and serious. She watched them, confused, as they spoke for a long time. Finally, she leaned over to her new husband, Edgar. "Is everything all right?" she whispered. "What language are you speaking?" "I can't understand it." Edgar smiled a little. "It's just our family's private language," he explained softly. "Don't worry, my love. You will learn it soon." Chief Oba's wife, Nwanyima, laughed. "Yes, darling," she added, her voice like honey. "You are new to the family, but you will learn our language soon. Come, you need to rest." She stood and took Cassandra by the arm. "I will take you to the room." Nwanyima led Cassandra up a grand staircase and into a large, dark bedroom. She placed a soft, thick veil over Cassandra's face, covering her eyes. "You must not open this veil for 14 days, she instructed. Cassandra felt a jolt of fear. This was so strange, and her heart began to beat fast. Nwanyima seemed to sense her fear. She softened her voice and smiled. "This is our family ritual, my dear. Every new bride will go through this to be a part of us. But don't worry, your husband will be by your side throughout this entire time." Hearing that Edgar would be with her made Cassandra feel less scared. With a deep breath, she nodded and answered, "Okay." Nwanyima left the room and locked the heavy door from the outside. Alone in the room, Cassandra sat on the edge of the bed. She touched the soft veil over her face and waited, a warm and innocent smile on her lips, unaware of the terrifying countdown that had just begun. The next day, Zina dressed as beautifully as she could. She put on her best clothes and looked at herself in the small mirror. A few minutes later, a loud beep from outside made her heart skip. She looked out the window and saw a sleek, black car waiting for her. She quickly went to her aunt. "I'm going out," she announced. "Victor is taking me out for lunch." Her aunt looked at her strangely, her face full of worry. She wanted to stop her, but knew how much Zina wanted to escape poverty and that marrying one of the Oba's sons had always been her biggest dream. She let her go. Zina walked outside and stepped into the luxurious car. The ride was quiet, and she stared at the city as they drove. When they arrived at the hotel, Her eyes went wide. It was so beautiful she could not believe it. The place glittered with gold and glass. She felt small, like a girl who did not belong in a place so beautiful. Inside, she saw Victor sitting at a table. He looked even more powerful than he had the day before. Zina walked straight to him, and they both sat down at the table. "I am happy you came," Victor said, and he ordered 2 specific glasses of wine from the waiter. Zina feels a mix of nerves and excitement. She is here, with the man who could change her life forever. As they sipped their wine, Victor began to ask Zina questions. He inquired about her personal life, her deepest dreams, and the things she loved most. Without hesitation, Zina told him everything. She spoke about losing her parents when she was just 8 years old and being raised by her aunt. She talked about her dream of becoming one of the wealthiest ladies in the city and how she had no idea how to achieve it as a plantain seller. Victor listened with a strange smile, then he leaned forward. "I'm so sorry you had to lose your parents so young," he sympathized. "But you know you can't achieve your dream of being a wealthy lady just by selling plantain." "I know," Zina acknowledged, "but what can I do? I don't have any money to start a good business." Victor smiled. "But what if I can help you? What if I can change your life? What if I can make your dreams come true with ease? What if I can make everything you have ever wished for come true? What will you give me in return? I will be at your service," she vowed without hesitation. "I will do anything you ask of me." "Fine then, marry me," he proposed. "Let's get married. If you marry me, you will be one of the richest ladies in this city. People will fear you. You will have everything you have ever dreamed of as a woman. Let's get married, and let me change your life with ease." Zina was so happy. She requested for more time to think about it, explaining they barely knew each other. Zina returned home that day and could not contain her joy. She went straight to her aunt and told her of the latest news. Her aunt was happy for her, but she still felt that things were happening too fast. They had just met a few days ago, and now he's proposing marriage. The aunt warned her to be very careful. She asked her to think about this decision carefully so she wouldn't regret it later. She reminded her again that they had just barely met. But Zina, lost in her own dream, did not listen. Later that evening, Zina and her aunt sat at their small table in the house, eating a simple meal of rice and stew. The quiet room was only filled with the soft clinking of their spoons against the plates. Zina was lost in thought, a small smile on her face as she reflected on the day's events in her mind. Suddenly, her phone rang. Zina picked it up and saw Victor's name on the screen. Her heart leaped into her throat. She looked at her aunt, her eyes wide with surprise, before she answered. "Hello," she whispered, her voice a shaky whisper. "Zina." Victor's smooth voice purred through the phone. "I haven't stopped thinking about you. Have you made a decision?" Zena's mind flashed back to her aunt's warning, but the image of the golden hotel and the luxurious car was so much stronger. The chance to escape poverty was right here, waiting for her. Yes, she declared, her voice growing stronger. I will marry you. Good, Victor replied, and his voice was full of cold satisfaction. Days passed, and Zena and Victor continued to speak. They went on luxurious shopping trips and drove around the city in his expensive car. For Zena, her dream had come true. She had found a rich man to marry. But for Victor, she was nothing more than a part of his cold, dark plan. For him, her life would mean more money for his family. Meanwhile, in the grand room of the Oba mansion, the new bride Cassandra was now terrified because of the strange sounds she kept hearing. But because she could still hear her husband's voice, that comforted her more. The 14 days passed as if they were nothing. On the evening of the final day, Cassandra was led to a massive room where Chief Oba and his entire family were waiting. They were all dressed in black, their faces pale and their eyes fixed on her. Cassandra wore a black gown and a black veil. She knelt down as they instructed. The family began to speak their strange language, their voices low and full of dark chants. Suddenly, Cassandra, who was still unaware of what was happening in the room because she was covered with a veil, felt a strange, cold presence. She felt a giant, slithering python wrap its powerful body around her, squeezing her tightly. Her eyes went wide with pure terror as she tried to scream, but the thick veil muffled the sound, leaving her to gasp silently as the python held her fast. The python's body tightened around Cassandra, the rough scales digging into her skin. The Oba family watched her, their faces calm. They were not smiling anymore. Their eyes held a strange, hungry stillness as they witnessed the sacrifice. Chief Oba and his sons stood like statues, and Nwanyema watched with a satisfied look on her face. This was not just a show, it was a dark ritual they had performed many times to keep their fortune. They were watching the blood offering that would feed their wealth. Cassandra's struggles grew weaker, and then she was still. The python slowly unwound itself from her lifeless body. Nwanyema walked to her and, with a look of cold satisfaction, pulled the black veil away from Cassandra's face. The ritual was complete. Her blood had paid the price for the family's riches. 7 days after Cassandra was sacrificed, Victor brought Zena home as his new wife. Zena was filled with happiness. She could not believe her dreams had finally come true. She was now married into the richest family any woman could ever dream of. Just like Cassandra, Zena was taken to a room and her face was covered with a veil. Victor's mother, Nwanyema, placed a thick, heavy veil over Zena's head. "You must not remove this veil for any reason," Nwanyema cautioned, her voice serious. "This veil will only be removed after 14 days. It is our family's ritual that every new bride must go through to become one of us." Zina smiled beneath the veil. She accepted the ritual without question, believing it was a rich people's family ritual. As Nwanyema left the room, Zina settled into wait, completely unaware that her own 2-week countdown had just begun. That same day, Zina could not sleep. Even in the dark silence of the mansion, she kept hearing strange, twin sounds echoing through the walls. The worst part was when something fell. She could hear it shattering on the floor. The sounds were unbearable, making her heart race. She wanted so badly to lift the veil and see what was happening, but she remembered her mother-in-law's chilling warning: never remove the veil no matter what happens. She began to feel so scared. Each time something fell, she would whisper, "Who is there?" But no one would answer. This went on for days. 2 maids would always bring her food. They would feed her themselves to prevent her from ever lifting the veil. Sometimes, Zina would refuse and ask them to let her eat herself. The maids would always give a cold refusal. It is part of the ritual. We have to be the ones to feed you. Without any other option, Zina had to accept. She would eat quietly, feeling helpless. Once they were done feeding her, the maids would look at her and remind her, in a low, serious voice, that if she tried to open the veil, the madame and her husband would know. They warned her not to do anything stupid or try to break the ritual. Then, they would leave, locking the door from outside. Zina was completely alone, trapped in the dark with the terrifying countdown continuing. The 14th day arrived. Just as the sun set, Zina was taken from the room she had been locked in for 2 weeks and led to the same massive chamber where Cassandra had faced her end. The entire Oba family was there, all dressed in black. Zina knelt down as they instructed, her heart beating a little faster. She was still unaware of what was about to happen, though she was a little scared of their strange family ritual. She told herself that after this, she would finally be able to live a wealthy life. She wanted so much to be rich that she did not complain about the strange ceremony. A few minutes later, the family began to speak in their strange language. Zina listened carefully, hoping to understand what they were chanting, but the language was not familiar to her. They spoke for a while, and then a python emerged. Just like Cassandra, the giant python wrapped itself around Zina. Before she could react or even scream, before she could save herself or even realize what was truly happening to her, it was too late. The giant python had already killed her. The very next day, a fleet of black cars pulled up to the aunt's humble home. Victor stepped out, followed by his parents and brothers, all of them wearing expensive black clothes. They walked to the door and were met by Zena's aunt, who was still expecting to hear from her niece. Victor's face was sad, a perfect act of a grieving man. "We have terrible news," he began. "Zina, she has passed away." The aunt gasped, her body shaking with grief. "No, it can't be." She cried. "We are so sorry," Victor stated. his voice low and full of false concern. She died from a very dangerous disease. The doctors claim the illness has been in her body for years without being treated. To prove his words, he handed Zena's aunt a document. "This is the doctor's report," he added, his voice quiet. The document had official-looking stamps and signatures. It reported clearly that Zena had died from a rare and untreatable illness. The truth, however, was that the Oba family had connived with a doctor to get a fake report that would make their lie seem real. Victor looked at the aunt, his eyes full of what looked like regret. "Zena never told us she was not feeling well. She never told anyone about her dangerous disease.
If only she had told us, we could have taken her to London and made sure she got well."
But she never told anyone." Nwanyima stepped forward, holding a large bag. She handed it to the aunt. "Please take this," she offered. "Take care of yourself, and take heart. We know this is a difficult time for you. From now on, we promise to take care of you." That day, Zena's aunt could not stop crying. She cried and cried, a deep, painful sound that filled the small home.
It was impossible for her to believe that her niece, who had just gotten married a few days ago, was now dead.
The grief was so overwhelming that she found it very hard to believe the news at all. But then she looked at the daughter's report that Victor had handed her. The official stamps and signatures seemed to confirm everything, making the horrible news a reality. Even with the document in her hand, she still felt that all was not what they seemed. She had been with Zena ever since she was little and had never once seen any signs of a dangerous disease. Zena had always been healthy and full of life. Her grief began to turn into a quiet, burning determination. She made up her mind to get to the roots of her niece's death. She promised herself she would find the doctor and the hospital where the report was made, and she would find information about the Oba family's past. She wanted to find out if Zena truly died from a disease as they had claimed, or if it was something else entirely. The next morning, Zena's aunt dressed in a black gown. With a determined look on her face, she opened the bag Nwanyima had given her. She saw a large amount of money and took some of it, enough to get started. She then located the hospital that was on the medical report Victor had given her. She walked straight to the reception desk and found a few nurses. She showed them the report and asked questions about it. They looked at the document carefully and confirmed it was indeed from their hospital. Relieved by this small proof, she then inquired about her niece. She described Zena, asking if anyone like her had been admitted there in the last few days. The nurses checked their receipts and records and said no one like that had been admitted. A cold feeling of fear began to spread through the aunt. The report was from this hospital, but Zena was not on the records. Something was terribly wrong. She demanded to see the doctor who had signed the medical results. The nurse, noticing the seriousness in her eyes, immediately led her to the doctor's office. When she met the doctor, he looked at the report and asserted, "She was admitted here a few days ago, but unfortunately, she died from a dangerous disease." "Show me her registration details," the aunt demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "Show me her admission records and everything else." The doctor froze. He did not see this coming. He could not provide the details she mentioned. Seeing his hesitation, the aunt knew that he was lying. She leaned forward, her voice a low whisper, "If you do not tell me the truth, I will scream. I will tell everyone that you made a fake report, and I will ruin your name." The doctor had no other choice. He looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then, with a deep sigh, he began to talk. He told her that he was the Oba family's private doctor. He admitted that this was the same lie they always told the bride's families to deceive them. His job, he confessed, was just to forge reports in exchange for money. He told her he did not know how the Oba family killed the bride. "Do you mean to say my niece is not the only bride who has died in that family?" She gasped, her voice broken. He looked at the floor, ashamed. "I have faked more than 29 reports just like this one," he admitted. Unknown to the doctor, everything he had just revealed had been recorded. Zena's aunt had her phone with a simple voice recorder. She played the recording back for the doctor to hear. "I knew that if I left here, you might contact the Oba family to tell them of my visit," she warned. "Do that, and I will share this for the world to hear. Everyone will see the kind of doctor you are." Her voice was cold and firm. "You better remain silent so that your secret will remain safe with me." She then left the hospital and returned home. That same day, she packed a small bag and took a long bus journey to the village. She visited an old woman known for her powerful vision, a woman whose name was spoken with respect and fear. She told the old woman everything the doctor had confessed and even showed her the recording. She told her that they were killers who had murdered her niece and more than 29 other brides. "I want them to pay with their blood," she pleaded, tears falling. "I want that whole family to be wiped out. This evidence is enough to get them arrested, but that will not be enough. They are too wealthy and can get themselves out of police custody. They need to pay blood for blood." She asked the woman to help her. The old woman agreed. She handed her a tiny powder substance wrapped in a piece of cloth. "Follow my instructions exactly," she ordered. "Do not make a single mistake." The aunt thanked her and left, returning to Lagos with a new kind of power. Back in the city, she found a girl named Amara, a brave girl who lived a difficult life. From the money the Oba family had given her, she gave Amara a large sum. She told her the entire story of her niece's death, of the family's secret, and of her own plan. "I need you to trap Victor, or any member of that family," she directed, giving Amara all the details she had. At first, Amara's face went pale with fear. What if I end up like one of those ladies? She fretted, her voice trembling. What if your plan fails and I end up being killed just like those ladies? What then will become of me? The aunt looked at her calmly. From the information I got, they will keep you inside a room for 14 days. On the night of the 14th day, the ritual will take place. They will take you to a room. As soon as you hear them speaking a language you do not understand, you have to act immediately. Remove the veil covering your face and pour this powder substance. Make sure you leave right away after pouring it. Amara looked at the money and then at the tiny powder substance in her hand. She accepted the plan. Days later, Amara went to a popular nightclub. She knew that Chief Oba's younger son, Edmund, loved to spend his nights there. She took the opportunity to seduce him, and he fell for her trick. They began dating. Edmund believed she was nothing more than a simple girl who would increase their family's wealth. Amara, on the other hand, was playing a big game to bring down the entire family. She claimed she was an orphan with no family to make Edmund believe her without any doubt. Soon, they were playing the game of a perfect partner. It wasn't long before Edmund proposed to her. She accepted without hesitation. They married in a court ceremony, and he proudly brought her home as his new wife. Amara was taken to a room, and her face was covered with a veil. Her new mother-in-law gave her the same warning as she had given the other brides. "You must not remove this veil for any reason," Nwanyema cautioned, her voice serious. "This veil will only be removed after 14 days, as is our family tradition." Amara, who already knew the mission, simply nodded and smiled underneath the veil. For days, she stayed under the veil in the room, tolerating all the strange sounds she kept hearing. She knew her mission, and she never complained. The day of the ritual arrived. Just like all the other new brides, Amara was taken to the same room where the Oba family had committed their murders. All of them were there, dressed in black. Amara was asked to kneel down, and she did. The Oba family began to speak their usual language. As soon as Amara heard the language she did not understand, she knew it was time. She acted immediately. She stood up and removed the veil before they could react. She then poured the strange, powerful substance on them. Without wasting another second, she turned and ran. She could hear their loud screams, a sound of agony and pain, echoing behind her. Before Amara could even return to Zena's aunt's house to share the news of her success, it turned out that Zena's aunt had already seen it on the news. A headline on a television in a public square announced that the Oba family had all died in their home on the same day from what looked like a rare poisoning. Zena's aunt cried and declared, "It's over, niece. You can now rest in peace. Your killers have joined you." Hours later, Zena's aunt went to the police station. She handed the police the recording of the daughter's confession. The doctor who had written all the fake reports was immediately arrested. He was forever banned from being a doctor, and his hospital was shut down. The end.